Your recent post shocked Elon Musk. Now he wants to know. Elon Musk had read millions of tweets, posts, and articles in his lifetime, but this one stopped him cold. It wasn't the sort of message that normally caught his eye, not a meme, not a half-baked criticism of Tesla, not even a speculative article about Mars. It was short, strangely worded, almost cryptic. But the moment his eyes scanned the lines, he felt something tighten in his chest. The glow of the monitor reflected faintly on the metal rim of his desk at Starbase, and for a few seconds, he simply stared, his brain refusing to file the words into any familiar category. His phone buzzed twice with reminders from his assistant, but he ignored it. The post was simple enough on the surface: they've already done it. You're not the first. Mars was only a rehearsal. Don't look up. Look deeper. He read it again, slower this time, trying to parse the odd rhythm. Normally, he would have dismissed such things as conspiracy rambling, the endless online chatter of people who wanted to sound important without saying anything of substance. But something about this one made him hesitate. The phrasing, the timing, the way it had been posted under an account with no history at all created that eerie sensation that someone, somewhere, knew something. And he hated the feeling of being behind, of not knowing when someone else might. He tapped his desk with 2 fingers, a nervous rhythm. "Okay," he muttered aloud. "What the hell does that mean?" His team was expecting him in half an hour for a Starship test briefing, but he leaned back and reread the post for the 10th time. It had been up for only 3 minutes before disappearing, deleted completely, though not before someone tagged him directly in a screenshot. He knew enough about the internet to realize that deletions didn't erase things, but whoever had sent it seemed to understand that the fleetingness of the message would give it more weight. He wasn't even sure if it was meant for him specifically or if it was some general proclamation to the void. Still, his gut told him otherwise. "Look deeper," he whispered, squinting at the phrase like it was a math problem. Deeper than Mars, that suggested Earth or beneath Earth. Subsurface oceans, caverns, old myths of civilizations underground. He shook his head at his own imagination. Ridiculous. He needed to ignore this, get back to work, finish the launch schedule. Yet he couldn't. For years, people had told him that he chased impossible ideas because he feared irrelevance, that he wanted to stamp his name across history to outlast mortality itself. And maybe there was truth in that. But nothing nagged at him more than the possibility that someone else had already done what he dreamed of doing, that someone had already colonized, invented, broken through before he even arrived. He picked up his phone and dialed Sam Teller, who had worked closely with him at SpaceX and still acted as a quiet advisor on matters outside the public eye. "Sam," he said without preamble. "I need a trace on a post. Anonymous, deleted. Find me where it came from." Sam sighed audibly through the line. "Elon, you realize how many rabbit holes this sounds like?" Elon sent the screenshot immediately and went back to staring at the blank spot on his feed where the post had once existed. Outside his window, the Texas sun blazed over the launch pads, heat shimmer rising from the ground, stainless steel reflecting blindingly in the distance. His engineers were out there preparing a vehicle that could cross worlds. And here he sat, puzzling over a ghost of a message that might mean nothing. Hours later, long after the meeting ended, and long after he should have been asleep, he sat in the dim quiet of his private quarters, scrolling through obscure forums and encrypted channels. He searched variations of the phrase, dug through caches of deleted posts, chased links into corners of the web most executives would never dream of wandering. And he found hints. Not proofs, not evidence, but whispers, threads that mentioned rehearsal planets, buried archives, technologies older than governments. At first, it was the usual conspiratorial noise, but there were patterns, repetitions of wording that seemed too aligned to be coincidence. He barely noticed the hours passing until his phone vibrated with Sam's return call. The account was a ghost. Single use, no metadata trail, wiped through at least 3 anonymizing layers, probably Tor plus something custom. Whoever set it up knew what they were doing. So, not a crank in his basement. Not unless that crank had serious resources. Elon's pulse ticked faster. Could it be state level? Maybe. Or someone trying to make you think it is. But here's the part you'll find interesting. The IP bounced through a relay that at one point resolved to a facility in Nevada, specifically near Groom Lake. Elon chuckled dryly. Area 51. That's too cliché, I know, but it's in the chain. I can't confirm origin, only that it passed there. For a moment, Elon sat silently, staring at the ceiling. All right, he said finally. Book me a flight. Sam's groan lingered in Elon's ear, followed by the faint sound of typing. You realize you're going to drag me into this circus again, don't you? You already are, Elon said, standing from his chair and pacing across the room. And don't call it a circus. Think of it as insurance. If someone's trying to mess with me, I want to know who and why. If it's legit, then it's even bigger. Sam muttered something inaudible and then sighed. Fine, I'll set it up. Private jet out of Brownsville, routed as a personal retreat. You'll need a cover story for your team. Otherwise, the gossip mills are going to churn. Elon stopped in front of the window again. The night was swallowing the launch site, but floodlights bathed the rockets in an almost theatrical glow. The sight should have filled him with pride, maybe even serenity, but tonight it only reminded him that the future could be stolen if someone else had already written it. Give me 12 hours, Sam said. I'll text the details. And Elon, don't tell anyone else about this. Not yet. Not even Gwyn. Especially not Gwyn. You know she hates it when you chase shadows. You'll lose credibility with your own people if this turns out to be nothing. When the call ended, he tried to sleep, but failed. His mind spun through possibilities, remnants of secret government projects, artifacts buried beneath deserts, experiments abandoned after the Cold War. He imagined tunnels, vaults, archives hidden in salt beds or mountains holding knowledge that could leapfrog centuries of human effort. And always, always, the phrase returned, look deeper. The next day was a blur. He appeared at morning briefings via video call, nodded through design updates, gave quick bursts of feedback, but his head was elsewhere. He packed light, just a backpack, laptop, some note scribbled onto paper, and slipped away without fanfare. The Gulf Stream climbed into a cobalt sky, banking west, its engines humming like a lullaby he could never quite sleep to. Sam met him on board, looking tired but resolute, dressed in a casual blazer that did little to hide his reluctance. "You're treating this like a mission," Sam said once they were airborne. "But you don't even know what the mission is." Sam gave him a look that was equal parts admiration and exasperation. "You're going to get us both on some watch list." The flight stretched long, uneventful, until the Nevada desert rose beneath them. Flat expanses broken by jagged ridges, sand glowing orange under a sinking sun. They touched down at a private strip miles from anywhere recognizable, where a black SUV waited without insignia. No one spoke as they climbed in, the driver nodding silently before steering them onto a road that barely qualified as pavement. Hours blurred into darkness until the SUV slowed near a fence, unmarked but imposing. Floodlights illuminated barbed wire, motion sensors glinting faintly in the sand. Elon leaned forward, studying the terrain. "This is still federal property," Sam whispered as if the desert itself might overhear. "We shouldn't even be this close." The driver cut the engine, and silence rushed in, broken only by the faint desert wind. Stars blanketed the sky, unpolluted by city lights, so brilliant that Elon tilted his head back for a moment in awe. The universe always made his problems feel small, but tonight it only intensified his need to know. They sat in the SUV for half an hour watching. Nothing moved. No patrols, no trucks, no aircraft, just empty stillness. Then faintly, a vibration. At first, Elon thought it was his imagination, but Sam's head snapped up, too. The ground trembled with a low, mechanical sound, a hatch, machinery. The sound grew, then faded again, leaving silence in its wake. Sam nodded grimly. "Yeah, but it could be anything, pumps, generators, or something underground." They waited another hour, but the sound did not return. Finally, the driver restarted the SUV and turned back toward the airstrip. Elon's mind refused to settle during the ride. The post hadn't been random. He was sure of it now. Back at the small hangar where their jet waited, Sam confronted him. "Listen, if this is real, and I'm not saying it is, you can't just chase it with two guys and a hunch. You'll need a team, people you trust." Elon leaned against the SUV, staring at the distant ridges. "The problem is, the more people who know, the harder it becomes to keep control of the information. And if this is what I think it is, control is everything." Elon hesitated before answering. "Proof that humanity isn't starting from zero, that we've been late to the game all along. Maybe others got further. Maybe they left something behind. And if that's true, then everything changes." Sam studied him, eyes narrowing. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" "No." Elon pushed away from the SUV and started toward the plane. "This is bigger than Tesla, bigger than SpaceX, bigger than Mars. If someone buried the truth, we'll dig it out." By the time they returned to Texas, Elon had already begun forming a plan. He couldn't storm military bases or demand classified files. But he had resources, satellites, AI systems, engineers who could analyze anomalies in data most people overlooked. And he had persistence. If there was something hidden, he would find it. In the days that followed, he doubled down on the search. He tasked a quiet division of SpaceX analysts to review ground-penetrating radar data from surveys done around Nevada and Utah. He leaned on AI teams at X to sift through terabytes of chatter, filtering for repeated fragments of phrases like "rehearsal planet" or "deeper than Mars." He even combed through declassified NASA archives late at night, hunting for scraps of language that might match the cryptic post. Patterns began to emerge. Old mission transcripts with sections blacked out. Geological anomalies beneath deserts where surveys reported voids too large to be natural caves. Historical records of projects cancelled without explanation, their budgets vanishing into special programs. None of it was proof, but together it wove a tapestry too compelling to ignore. Then came the second message. It appeared not on Twitter, not on any mainstream platform, but in the data stream of itself. One of his engineers flagged it immediately, a fragment of binary code injected into the traffic of a satellite that hadn't been scheduled for transmission. At first glance, it looked like noise, but when converted, it spelled out a sentence: "You're close. Stop digging above. Start below. Time is short." Elon's hands trembled slightly, but his voice was steady. "They wanted to make sure I saw it, which means they're watching. Or they're inside your system. Same thing." Elon's pulse raced. "Sam, we're not chasing shadows anymore. Someone out there knows exactly what I'm doing, and they want me to keep going." They were watching him. That thought pulsed through Elon with an odd combination of exhilaration and dread, like the moment before a rocket clears the tower and the ground drops away. He could feel the weight of it in the small hairs on his forearms, in the sudden tightness behind his eyes. Whoever had sent the messages had access to systems designed to be private: Starlink relays, anonymizing networks, even the shadowed channels that ran between defense contractors and classified programs. Whoever they were, they had patience, precision, and a taste for theater. They also had a message: look deeper. Start below. Don't stop until you understand. And now they were telling him time was short. Sam moved quickly in that efficient, practical way he always did. When the hypothetical became immediate, he called in a handful of people Elon trusted implicitly, a compact team of engineers and analysts from SpaceX with security clearances high enough to make Senior General squint, an old cryptographer who had once chaired a startup Elon admired for its radical thinking, a geophysicist whose specialty was reading the unreadable voids in the crust, acoustic anomalies, ghostly reflections, and gravity maps. They gathered in a windowless conference room at the administrative edge of the campus, faces lit by a single screen that displayed the decoded Starlink fragment. The words on the screen seemed childish in their simplicity, but the team all felt the same electric truth: someone wanted them to follow. "Either this is a very elaborate prank," the cryptographer said, "or somebody with deep clearance and a grudge is trying to manipulate you." He had the air of someone who loved puzzles more than people. Either way, the binary shows a deliberate hand, not random noise or an insider reaching out. The geophysicist suggested, if the post bounced through a chain that crossed Groom Lake, there are people with clearance who could route messages for plausible deniability. Someone inside the machine. Maybe old program folks could be trying to get your attention without revealing themselves. Elon listened and felt his focus sharpen. The plan, the resources, the audacity to assemble this ad hoc crew were all things he knew how to do. The harder part was what they were chasing, the idea that humanity was not starting from zero, that someone, somebody, something had rehearsed what he was doing now. That notion had lodged in him like a burr, abrasive and insistent. Elon had always loved being the first to break the barrier. But the possibility that he might be stepping into a path already worn by other feet changed the origin story of everything he planned to build. If proof existed, if artifacts, technology, or archives lay beneath crust or ruin, then the ethical dilemmas multiplied beyond his typical engineering calculus. "We do it carefully," he told the room. "We verify, we protect, and we don't reveal until we know what we're dealing with. No leaks, no social media, no headlines. If there's anything here that can hurt people, we stop it. If there's something that can help humanity, we share it responsibly." "You already said it," Elon replied. "Look deeper. We find anomalies, places where the Earth's crust sings differently, where gravity maps show holes, where heat signatures don't match geology. We cross-reference every old project that disappeared off budgets. We ask for help without revealing why we're asking." The team dove into work. They scraped old data sets, reprocessed satellite imagery with new filters designed by a machine learning team that delighted in the absurd. They ran historical procurement logs through pattern recognition algorithms, hunting for projects that had been funneled into opaque accounts. They contacted retired engineers who, rumor suggested, had overseen projects that the public knew nothing about and who, now, in the twilight of their careers, might be willing to speak. 3 weeks into the hunt, late at night in a lab cluttered with coffee cups and whiteboards scrawled with equations that looked like art, the geophysicist sat bolt upright at a monitor. Elon leaned in. The map showed a region in the basin and range, a place of old volcanics and sediment, but over it lay a perfectly regular depression, sides, angles too precise for natural processes, the sort of thing a drafting table would produce. The algorithm had flagged unusual reflectivity in certain wavelength bands. Amplified seismic interrogations, small, careful detonations used in controlled surveys, had produced echoes that returned on schedules and harmonics that suggested folded cavities, internal chambers with regular spacing. They petitioned quietly, using corporate influence and back-channel conversations to request permission for non-invasive surveys from the agencies that controlled those airspaces. Permission arrived grudgingly, with the sort of caveats that make legal teams smile and intelligence officers frown. It was enough: high-resolution LiDAR, gravimetric sweeps, and muon tomography. The latter, a fancy technique that used cosmic ray particles to see through dense rock, brought the picture into clearer view. Elon watched the reconstructed model on the screen, the digital phantom of something beneath the desert. It was not a small thing. The chambers were vast, their scale implying purpose, storage, habitation, infrastructure. Along one wall, the mapping team detected linear traces consistent with mechanical tracks. At deeper depths, the reflections suggested embedded materials whose compositions did not match natural mineral signatures, alloys with isotopic ratios slightly off the pattern expected in earth-borne metals. It made him feel like an archaeologist watching the outline of a lost city appear through dust. But instead of pottery shards, the lines suggested wiring conduits, geometry for airflow. "It looks human," the cryptographer added. But the isotopes, that could mean either very old human metallurgy or something tampered with. The question they all felt but did not voice, who and when, loomed enormous. The Post's cryptic line about Mars being a rehearsal came back to him. Was it literal? A civilization that had tried elsewhere and then recycled their efforts on Earth? Or was it metaphorical, a training ground, an experiment? The more they learned, the more the terms slipped between literal and symbolic. And then the insider reached out. The contact came at a time when they had nearly convinced themselves that they were.